There are certain people who should not be in positions of power because they simply don't have the ability to avoid being corrupted by the authority that's bestowed upon them. And I'm not talking about like the government here or corporate situations. We're talking about lower level management positions within the service industry. So there's two main issues with this. The first thing is that their job literally becomes their entire life. And that little sliver of power that they have over other employees and members of the public becomes this drug that they get addicted to and required to literally continue living. And the second thing is that they get so insecure that any kind of disregard towards their authority is the worst possible thing that you could ever do to them. And they will do anything that they can to get revenge on you, even if it means destroying their own job and the reputation of the company that they work for. So to exemplify this behavior, I want to tell you about a cabin service leader for Spirit Airlines called Jay. Now, Jay kicked two women off of a flight because they were wearing crop tops. And even though they offered to cover up, the power trip had already started. So there were two women called Tara and Teresa. So they were traveling on Spirit Airlines from Los Angeles to New Orleans. It was one of their 30th birthdays, so they were celebrating this. And they got on this flight, they were waiting to take off, and the air conditioning on the plane either wasn't on or it wasn't working. So they were actually wearing crop tops with sweaters on top, but they decided to take their sweaters off because they were hot. And this is when they were approached by this cabin service leader called Jay, who seemed to have an issue with the fact that they were wearing crop tops. And then it kind of just all went downhill from there. So this is like the initial video of like the interaction that led to them being ejected from the plane.
We don't need any camera. Please turn that off. Are you part of the situation?
So these are the two girls, and then that's the guy that essentially had the issue with them wearing crop tops. And you can see, like, essentially, this is how she's dressed.
Not recording.
This is how she's dressed, and this is what he has an issue with.
They all agree. They're on our side. But this guy is trying to kick us out of the plane because she's wearing a crop top. And because I'm wearing a crop top. And now they're arguing.
Because we are pulling away from the gate, and whatever he said was ridiculous.
And so the lady sitting in front of those two women on the flight, she's there with her kid. And so she says to this cabin service leader person, Jay, she tells him that she's wearing a crop top underneath her sweater, right? And so she's like, if you want to kick them off, you have to kick me off too, because I'm also wearing a crop top. And not even that she had it showing, but that she had it underneath her sweater. So essentially, they also kicked her off the plane too, with the other two women. You see this here? That's the mom. And that's the kid. And then this is the cabin crew guy. Yeah, so this is all of the three of them getting kicked off the airplane.
So I was kicked out from the flight from Spirits because I'm wearing a crop top. She's kicking me out.
And that's the mum behind them.
Me and my friend, because we are wearing crop tops.
So I've seen all of the footage from multiple different angles, and we'll get into that later, about this situation. And what I don't understand is how this was able to occur, considering the fact that they had sweaters that they could have just put on top of the crop tops. And on an airline, usually they have blankets. Like, if it was that much of an issue, they could have just given them something to cover up just so that they could get to where they were going, and so everyone could move on and not have this delay. But the fact that they then kicked off another lady because she claimed that she was wearing a crop top under a sweater that they didn't even see. It gets to a point where now this is just stupid, but for some reason this is happening because somebody has the ability to make this happen. So to provide you with more context for the authority that this person is wielding over these customers, Spirit Airlines has this thing called a contract of carriage, right? And this is like the agreement that all of the customers of the airline have to essentially agree to when they're traveling on Spirit planes. And so let me show you what this says. So take a look at this. So here, conduct condition. A guest shall not be permitted to board the aircraft or may be required to leave an aircraft if that guest, and then here at G, is barefoot or inadequately clothed, or whose clothing is lewd, obscene, or offensive in nature. Right? And then the next part says that if a guest is not permitted to board and or required to leave an aircraft for safety or regulatory reasons under paragraph 4.3 and its subsections, the guest will not be eligible for a refund. Is that really lewd? Is it obscene? Is it offensive? You know, there's no specific mention of crop tops in this agreement that states that like this is what we're referring to when we say lewd or offensive. It's like it could be open to interpretation, and so that interpretation in itself doesn't necessarily make it fair if you apply it to this particular ladies in that situation, but you don't apply it to everybody who might be wearing certain clothing that might be revealing. It's obscure. It's not specific enough. And so somebody that's reading that is not necessarily going to be able to understand very much more than not being naked what might be acceptable or not in terms of the clothing they choose to wear on an airline. All right, so now I want to show you like different POVs from other individuals who were witnessing this situation, because it's one of those things that like in 2024, whenever something crazy, wild, unexpected happens, you're going to have multiple people that are able to film it and provide their own perspective of what's going on. So this person posted this, probably like a story or something. This dude is kicking a girl for wearing a crop top. Love it here. That's the guy right there. That's Jay.
She's wearing like a regular top right now, and she literally, I don't even think you guys are going to believe this, but now he's saying that they will stop the plane unless she puts clothes on. Okay, get this over to Michelle. Hold on, I'm gonna show you what she's wearing.
And then this is another guy's POV, and that's the mum there. Yeah, this is just wild. All right, so this next part is really interesting. So a lot of people helped these two women to get to where they wanted to go. This kind of blew up on social media, and so there were a lot of people that were providing support. So they did eventually end up going on holiday, right? But there was one lady that was on the plane that kind of provided an account for what this Jay guy did afterwards, and this is just like really weird. Check this out. Oh my God, I'm the girl that was in the brown jumpsuit sitting across you on that flight. I got off the plane and immediately started contacting authorities on site and reporting that flight attendant. I was informed that the captain would have had to made that call to remove you all, and our captain was not notified. I landed at the airport and pulled every press pass I had to get your contact. I'm currently still at the airport in New Orleans. I have more than too many connections that will be willing to support you. That was such an incredibly awful and traumatic experience. Literally, we got off the flight and he was smiling so hard. He got on the microphone and said, "Welcome to you that made it to New Orleans. Next time, mind your business and you'll get to your destination sooner." You see what I'm talking about with some of these people in these lower level management positions and the power trips that they love to go on. So there is a happy ending to all of this. So these two girls on the way back to Los Angeles from New Orleans, they went to the airport and their tickets got flagged. So that means that like rather than to go through security and go onto your flight or whatever, you have to go to a certain desk to get addressed by employees from the airline. So this is a story they posted. "We made it to LA safe. And in first class, this sweet lady from Spirits came up to us at the NOLA airport and told us, 'We do things differently here. Welcome and have a great flight.' Guess what? We were wearing crop tops. I took my shirt off and the 4 women flight attendants didn't feel offended at all. Women rule, but Jay and Spirit don't." And then there's another one here. "It's ironic that Spirit Airlines didn't acknowledge the whole crop top issue. Jay never apologized, yet today their supervisor at NOLA Airport came to tell us they do things differently over here, and they offered us an upgrade to first class. It makes me wonder, am I right or am I right?" What I was really intrigued to find is the fact that this is not an isolated incident. There are so many other situations on a number of other US carriers where people are targeted specifically for what they're wearing. There are these obscure dress codes that a number of airlines all have that aren't specific enough to identify what clothing you can wear and what you cannot wear, but specifically. So there are situations to where people get kicked off of planes or refused admission to planes for what they're wearing, but at the same time, this is not universally enforced. There are certain situations where people get away with it, and there are certain situations which are much rarer where people don't. A simple solution to all of this would be for airlines to clearly stipulate exactly what you can and can't wear and provide examples so people understand clearly. But another really important factor here is that these dress codes and the enforcement of these dress codes is specifically targeted at women. I mean, when you really think about it, there's a lot more options of what clothing women can wear, But at the same time, men just generally don't face the same stigmatism as women when it comes to what you're dressing and what is accepted or what's not acceptable in the clothing that you wear. And another thing as well, this cabin crew member, Jay, you know, I don't understand what it is about him as a person that he might see these girls wearing crop tops and have an issue with that. I don't know if he was just trying to enforce the rules and he just did that specifically to those two ladies, or what personal bias he might have against those ladies for what they were wearing. I mean, the way that he expressed himself, right? He's a black man. We've got the fade going on. He's wearing a pink bow tie. He's expressing, you know, who he is. And I almost feel like he would be the last person that you would expect to then randomly, arbitrarily impose this regulation on these women. Like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, especially given the fact that they offered to cover up. Like, this isn't a situation to where the issue was what they were wearing. This is clearly the fact that this individual, Jay, he did not like the way that they reacted to it. He didn't like the fact that they pulled out their phones and they started recording. He didn't like the fact that other people around them started to raise protests to this. The thing is, though, people like Jay, they will never go away. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but for real, people like this, they just exist in these positions of power and they abuse it. And this is just a part of life that we have to deal with. And that's the bigger picture.